The streets of Shanghai never sleep. Beneath its dazzling skyline and river of flashing lights lies a city that guards more secrets than it reveals. But none as shocking, as stirring, and as mind-bending as this one, an apartment hidden in plain sight, nestled in one of Shanghai's most exclusive districts, untouched by the chaos outside. And its supposed residents? None other than Wang and Xiao. 4 years, fans and media alike have chased whispers of a secret retreat, a private sanctuary away from the storm of fame. But no one expected what surfaced recently, a hidden apartment, fully equipped and quietly inhabited by 2 of China's most influential and adored stars. It all began with a single blurred photo leaked onto a private fan forum. It showed a tall figure wearing a familiar beanie, Wang Yibo's signature style, entering a nearly unmarked building through a side entrance. Moments later, another figure, slightly shorter and wearing a black hoodie with the same tiger embroidery Xiao once wore at a concert, slipped in behind him. Speculation ignited like wildfire. The building was located in the French Concession, a leafy, quiet enclave in Shanghai known for its colonial architecture, upscale cafes, and tight security. Many stars owned property there, but this one apartment, it seemed, didn't exist on any rental or purchase records. A ghost address. What fans didn't know, however, was that this apartment had a history. Insiders whispered that it had been purchased under a shell company, managed through layers of intermediaries, keeping the real owners hidden. It was decorated sparingly, with sleek, modern touches. Cameras were deliberately left out. Curtains were always drawn. And yet, inside those walls, history was being made quietly, emotionally, and completely away from the public eye. According to an anonymous assistant who once delivered scripts to the location, the energy inside was unlike anything they had ever seen. They didn't speak much when I came in, the assistant shared. But you could tell. The silence wasn't awkward. It was familiar. Like 2 people who didn't need words. The mystery deepened when Xiao disappeared from the public eye for 10 days earlier this year, citing personal reflection. Fans thought he had traveled abroad or gone to visit family. But multiple sightings near the hidden apartment suggested otherwise. And Wang Yibo, despite his hectic schedule with street racing, endorsements, and music, he too was seen ducking away, his location suddenly off radar for a stretch of 4 days. He'd posted nothing. His phone was unreachable. Those close to him called it a tech detox, but fans knew better. Then came the delivery driver incident. A man named Li Wei, who worked as a high-profile delivery person for celebrities, told reporters he had been instructed to drop off a rare vintage camera, one from the 1960s, at a location he couldn't photograph or even GPS. He was blindfolded and picked up by a private car before being dropped outside a nondescript alley. The package was accepted by a man in a mask, but his voice, Li Wei claimed, was unmistakable. It was Xiao. He said thank you. And that smile, even hidden, you knew it was him. But why the secrecy? Why would 2 stars at the height of their careers need to disappear? Insiders claim that the answer lies in their long and complicated friendship, one forged under immense public pressure, industry rivalry, and a fan war that once threatened to bury them both. Their bond had started as a professional one, with the Untamed catapulting them into a firestorm of fame. But what followed, rumors, shipping wars, intense media scrutiny, pushed them into a silence that many believed was final. They stopped appearing together. Interviews carefully avoided their connection. And fans began to ask, were they even friends anymore? The truth, however, lay not in their distance, but in their silence. The apartment, sources suggest, became their meeting ground. A place where no cameras followed. No reporters asked questions. No fans screamed their names. Just them, the silence, and whatever remained unspoken. A close producer friend once confided, they needed it. That apartment saved them. It wasn't about hiding. It was about healing. Inside the apartment, details slowly emerged, a chessboard with pieces left mid-game, a shelf filled with books, some highlighted, some dog-eared, vinyl records of old rock ballads, likely brought in by Wang Yibo, and a series of sketches stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, drawings believed to be Xiao. One wall was adorned with photos, none of them professional. All were Polaroids. 2 people cooking. One of them asleep on the couch with a book across his chest. A blurry shot of them laughing. One framed picture, oddly hung in the corner, showed them sitting on the apartment balcony, drinks in hand, watching the sunset. In that moment, captured forever in quiet defiance, they were not idols. Just two young men who had endured fame, betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption, and found solace in each other. The story doesn't stop there. Fans noticed a change in both actors after the periods they disappeared to the apartment. Zhan returned from his hiatus more grounded, reflective, even warmer. He started choosing scripts with deeper emotional arcs. In one interview, when asked what kept him emotionally stable, he paused before simply saying, "A place I go to, and someone who listens." Wang, too, evolved. He surprised fans by slowing down, taking time to work on his music more than high-speed endorsements. "Sometimes you have to get off the race track to see what really matters," he said cryptically during an awards speech. Then came the most mind-blowing revelation of all. A leaked audio file, allegedly captured through an accidental livestream, caught Wang saying the following words, "It's always been you. No matter what the world says, this apartment, us, this is real." The audio was quickly taken down. Fans divided. Some called it fake. Others insisted it was authentic. But those who believed, clung to it with renewed passion. Because it meant everything. Not just that their bond had survived, but that it had become something deeper. Something real. Something they didn't need the world's approval for. Today, the apartment remains unconfirmed by either star. No one has posted pictures. No official statement has ever acknowledged it. And yet, that's what makes it so powerful. It exists only in the shadows. Just like their story. A story that has defied fan wars, crushed under the weight of fame, and yet quietly endured. In a city as loud and relentless as Shanghai, two people carved out a piece of silence and filled it with memories, music, and meaning. And whether they ever reveal it or not, that hidden apartment will live on in the hearts of those who believe in something more than stardom. In something real. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones never told aloud. And somewhere in a quiet alley, behind a curtain-drawn window, that story continues away from cameras, away from chaos, and right where it belongs, in the quiet heart of Shanghai. The Shanghai skyline twinkled like a sea of stars that night, but inside the hidden apartment tucked behind the tall French concession trees, the lights remained off. Not because no one was home, but because home, for Wang and Zhan, wasn't defined by walls or lights. It was defined by silence and presence. That night, it rained. Heavy, unrelenting rain that soaked the pavement and blurred the car windows. A black SUV pulled up quietly to the rear alley of the building. No paparazzi. No flashing lights. Just the soft screech of tires against the wet stone. The driver didn't get out, but the passenger door opened, and Wang stepped into the night, pulling his hood tighter over his head. He didn't go through the main lobby. He never did. Instead, he disappeared down the side path that twisted around the building, tapping a code into a rusted keypad hidden behind a cluster of vines. The gate clicked open, and moments later, he was inside. Upstairs, Zhan had already started preparing dinner. Not extravagant, just quiet comfort food, noodles, broth, a couple dumplings he had picked up from the local vendor who never asked questions. A faint melody played from an old speaker, something nostalgic, possibly Teresa Teng or Eason Chan, familiar voices that filled the silence without overwhelming it. The door didn't need to knock. Wang walked in like he had 100 times before, like the space was stitched into his soul. Their eyes met briefly. No words were exchanged. None were needed. He dropped his phone on the counter, took off his hoodie, and helped slice vegetables like it was instinct. Like they'd always done this. And maybe, they had. In that hidden apartment, they didn't rehearse lines. They didn't chase perfection. They didn't play roles. They unraveled. There was one evening, weeks prior, when a storm had cut the electricity off. Total blackout. No Wi-Fi. No lights. Just the sound of rain hammering the windows. Zhan had lit 3 candles. Wang had pulled out the guitar he always kept in the corner, dusty, a little out of tune. "Play something old," Zhan had whispered, sitting cross-legged on the floor, hugging a pillow to his chest. Wang Yibo strummed slowly, then started singing a broken version of Chengdu. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Halfway through, Zhan began humming along, their voices blending in the dark. And then silence. The music faded, but neither moved. The candlelight flickered over their faces, catching the glimmer in Zhan's eyes. You ever think about just disappearing for good? Zhan had asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Wang Yibo had stared at him for a moment, then replied, only if you're disappearing with me. A pause. Then laughter, quiet, breathless, like it hurt a little. Because in that moment, it wasn't about running from fame. It was about running toward peace. Back in the present, the smell of garlic and ginger filled the apartment. Zhan leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping tea while Yibo stirred the pot. They didn't talk about the industry. They never did here. Instead, they'd discuss small things like a new song they heard, a movie scene that stuck in their head, or a fan letter that made them cry. The apartment was a world of their own. There was a couch in the living room, old, slightly torn at the seams, but it was theirs. Countless late nights had been spent there, with Yibo asleep on one end and Zhan sketching on the other. Once, Zhan had drawn a portrait of Yibo as he dozed off, eyes closed, expression soft. The sketch still hung on the fridge, half covered by a grocery list. And then there was the plant. Just one. A struggling monstera they had bought together from a market vendor who insisted it brought good harmony between people. It had nearly died twice, overwatered once, completely forgotten during a filming week another time. But it kept surviving. Like us, Zhan once joked, tapping the leaf gently. Hard to kill, Wang Yibo had muttered with a smirk. One particularly memorable night, after an award show, they had retreated to the apartment without saying a word to anyone. It was snowing that night. Zhan had just won a major acting award. Yibo had dropped his racing gloves on the floor as soon as he entered and collapsed onto the carpet. You did well tonight, Zhan had said, watching him from the doorway. Yibo didn't answer right away. Then he looked up and said something Zhan hadn't expected. You didn't thank me in your speech. The room froze. Zhan blinked. What? I'm kidding, Yibo added with a grin, tossing a pillow at him. But behind the joke was something real. Something tender. I didn't have to, Zhan finally said. You already know. They'd stayed up all night, not talking about fame, not about awards, but about life. Dreams. Regrets. Childhood fears. First heartbreaks. All the things the world didn't get to see. This apartment, this hidden place, was where they got to be real. So when rumors broke again that they had grown distant, or no longer interacted, or were forbidden to collaborate, they didn't react. They just came back here. Every time. No explanations. No statements. Just each other. The neighbors never talked, either. One elderly woman down the hall would sometimes wave to them when she saw them come and go. One time she asked, "You boys musicians or something?" They smiled and nodded. She gave them a plate of warm steamed buns. In this building, they weren't stars. They weren't forced into the spotlight, or pitted against each other for clicks and headlines. They were just human. And maybe that's why this apartment meant so much. Because in a world obsessed with tearing them apart, this small space held them together. Fans might never know exactly where it is. They might never see the inside or know what color the walls are or how the sunlight filters through in the morning. But they know this. Something extraordinary is happening behind that closed door. Something worth protecting. Because some stories aren't meant to be broadcasted. Some are meant to be lived, quietly, deeply, and away from the world. And in that hidden apartment in Shanghai, Wang Yibo and Zhan are still living theirs. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, share with fellow fans, subscribe for more exclusive, emotional stories every week.